We often think defeat is the end of the story. You fail once and the label sticks, weak, soft, not ready. But in war, there are moments when humiliation is not a verdict. It's a beginning, moments when an army decides it will never, ever break that way again. It's 23 March 1943, just before dawn, near El Guettar in central Tunisia. American foxholes stretch across stony ground, shallow cuts in hard earth. Men of the 1st Infantry Division, big red one lay awake, fingers on cold metal, listening. Somewhere out in the half-light, engines rumble. German engines, for the Americans in these holes, there is a constraint as sharp as any order, no repeat of Kasserine. No breaking and running, no second chance to prove they can stand. For the Germans rolling toward them, the constraint feels just as simple. They have one window, a few weeks at most, before these inexperienced Americans learn how to fight. If they strike hard now, they believe, they can smash them again, push them back into the sea before they adapt. On both sides, no one knows yet that 21 days under a new commander have changed everything. The German tanks crest a rise, silhouettes black against the growing light. And American artillery officers glance at synchronized watches, fingers hovering over firing keys, time on target. One chance to show the enemy that the army he humiliated at Kasserine Pass no longer exists. 5 weeks earlier. Mid-February 1943, Field Marshal Erwin Rommel sits in his command post near the Tunisian border, hunched over a table under dim lamplight. Outside, Afrika Korps officers celebrate. They have just smashed through American positions at Kasserine Pass over 6-0 American casualties in 6 days, entire battalions surrendering, equipment scattered and abandoned across the battlefield. Inside, Rommel is not celebrating. He is writing to his wife, Lucy. His pen moves quickly, the words blunt. The Americans, he writes, are soft. Their officers are amateurs making mistakes that would earn a court-martial in any European army. They lack proper training. They break under pressure. He has seen this kind of collapse before, from the French in 1940. What happened at Kasserine Pass is not just a defeat for the United States Army, it is a humiliation. Men raised on stories of World War I heroism now stare at the ground, wondering if they are cut out for this kind of war at all. From Rommel's point of view, he has not just found a tactical opening. He believes he is watching the American spirit crack in real time. In his letter, he tells Lucy that if Germany can launch another offensive within weeks before the Americans have time to learn, they can drive this Green Army into the sea. The assessment is passed on to Berlin: exploit American weakness immediately, do not give them time to adapt. For German intelligence officers, Rommel's verdict is not just prejudice, it fits everything they have seen. At Kasserine, American forces display failures at every level. Commanders position units poorly, scattering strength instead of concentrating it. Radio discipline disintegrates under stress, channels jam with panicked chatter. Infantry and armor move without coordination, like separate armies fighting their own battles. When German armor hits, American units retreat without orders. One company pulls back, then the neighboring one sees movement and does the same. Panic spreads faster than any German armored spearhead. At the top of the American chain in this sector, Major General Lloyd Fredendall commands I Corps from a bunker complex dug into a canyon 70 miles behind the front. He talks to subordinate units by radio and telephone, far from the dust and smoke. He never truly sees the battlefield. His orders are late, contradictory, and often out of touch with reality on the ground. German intelligence compiles the picture. American equipment is adequate. The individual American soldier can fight bravely when cornered, but the command structure is amateur. These are troops who have never faced the Wehrmacht before. They are trying to learn modern warfare while fighting Germany's best field commanders. Rommel estimates it will take them at least 6 months to straighten out their leadership problems, and likely a year to develop doctrine that can stand up to German methods. If Germany hits again in March, he believes the result will look just like Kasserine. He has reason for confidence. German armored doctrine has proven itself since 1930, 9. Concentrate superior force at a weak point, punch through with armored spearheads. Exploit the breach with mobile formations, moving faster than the enemy can reorganize. Force him to retreat or leave him encircled. That formula crushed France in 6 weeks. It annihilated Soviet formations in 1941. It pushed the British back and forth across North Africa twice. It works because most armies cling to defensive lines positions. The Germans can outflank, bypass, and collapse from the rear with speed and surprise. Kasserine Pass has just shown Rommel that the Americans are no different. They choose defensive positions and wait. When German armor masses against a weak sector, they retreat, not counterattack. Rommel studies the maps of central Tunisia, eyes tracing the ridges, and passes around Guettar. To him, it looks ideal for another demonstration. If German forces attack there in late March, they will hit American units still recovering from Kasserine. Psychologically, the advantage alone could be decisive. Berlin agrees. One more offensive, they believe, will finish the job. Smash American morale completely, then, with the Army neutralized, Germany can turn its main attention back to the British, while the Americans quietly ship their defeated formations home to start over. In early March, German intelligence notes a change in the American order of battle. On 6 March 1943, Lieutenant General George Patton assumes command of I Corps, the same corps that caved in at Kasserine. Reports start arriving from American rear areas. When Patton rolls into II Corps headquarters, the atmosphere shifts before he says a word. His arrival is a show in itself. Siren wailing, staff cars kicking up dust, the general stepping out wearing his famous ivory-handled revolvers. He does not simply issue orders, he issues an ultimatum. The days of the soft American are over. In the desert, in the heat and dust, his first changes seem almost petty from the outside. He forces men to wear neckties and regulation helmets, even under the blazing sun. Officers who appear without proper uniform are fined on the spot. Soldiers who fail to salute are corrected publicly on the street in front of their peers. To the Germans watching from afar, this is theater. One general, they tell themselves, cannot fix systemic problems in 3 weeks. Patton might stiffen morale a little. He might tighten discipline, but he cannot teach an entire corps new doctrine in less than a month. That is not how armies work. Rommel's health is failing by this point. Years of strain, stomach troubles, and exhaustion are catching up with him. But his tactical mind is still sharp. He reviews the Guettar attack plan one last time before turning operational control in Tunisia over to General Hans-Jürgen von Arnim. The plan assumes American defensive tactics. It assumes hesitation under pressure. It assumes 3 weeks are not enough time to transform an army. Every assumption feels logical, based on German experience against every enemy so far. 22 March 1943. In the German assembly areas near Guettar, crews make final checks. The order of battle for the offensive is strong. The 10th Panzer Division, with its Mark I tanks and experienced crews, will lead the blow. On the flank, the Italian Centauro Division brings its own armor and infantry. Maps are spread out in command posts. German officers brief their men on what to expect from the Americans. They will defend from fixed positions. When German armor concentrates, they will call for air support that may or may not arrive in time. As pressure ramps up, they will do what they did at Kasserine. They will crack. They will retreat. The technical balance seems to favor the Germans, too. The long-barreled 75 mm guns on their tanks can penetrate Sherman armor at 20 yards. The Sherman's own 75 mm needs to close to around 500 yards for reliable penetration against German fronts. In open desert terrain, that range advantage can be decisive. German artillery officers prepare fire plans to suppress American guns and infantry as the panzers advance. The entire operation is designed to repeat what worked at Kasserine. Different valley, same script. 23 March 1943. Dawn over Guettar. The sky is pale, the air cool, the rocky ground wearing a sheen of early light. To the east, the lead elements of 10th Panzer begin to roll, engines growl, tracks clatter over stones. From German tank cupolas, the terrain ahead looks favorable, visibility is good, ridges and wadis lie where the maps say they should. Everything matches the operational plan. In the American lines, soldiers of the 1st Infantry Division shift in their foxholes, hearing that distant rumble. These are many of the same men who broke at Kasserine. They remember the panic, the feeling of being hunted. Today, they feel something different, not come never that, but something cold and hard has replaced the old fear. In I Corps artillery command posts, American officers stand over plotting boards. Under Patton, they have trained relentlessly in a new technique, time on target. Instead of each battery firing as soon as it is ready, guns across the Corps compute their own firing times so that all shells arrive on a given target simultaneously. No slow, walking barrage the enemy can duck or adjust to just sudden, concentrated violence from the sky. Forward observers report German armor moving. Coordinates are relayed back with clipped, professional clarity. Timers are set, guns elevate, time on target, fire. A moment of eerie quiet hangs over the German advance. Then, all at once, the air tiers open. Not a few scattered ranging rounds, but a perfectly timed, coordinated salvo. American artillery shells crash into German positions across the leading axis, many landing within the same instant. Infantrymen dive for cover, radio operators shout over the shriek and thunder, trying to be heard. One German tank lurches as a near miss slams its track. Another takes a direct hit and stops dead, smoke pouring from the engine grills. On German nets, urgent calls spike, Verwin Diet, medical evacuation needed. This is not the hesitant, inaccurate artillery they faced at Kasserine. The Americans are not suppressed. They are fighting back with a level of precision that speaks of professional forward observers and well-trained gun crews. To German staff officers listening in, the effect is shocking. The Americans have learned to play the artillery game the way only the best armies do. But 10th Panzer is not shattered, it is a veteran formation. They push forward through the barrage. This, they tell themselves, is expected resistance. The Americans will not hold out under sustained pressure. Orders go out, keep advancing, close with the American positions, bring the tank guns into decisive range. As the German columns push deeper on, 0 yards, then 2, 0 into the American zone, they start drawing fire from new angles. American tank destroyers, hidden behind folds in the terrain, open up. The sharp crack of their guns echoes along the line. German Mark IVs begin taking hits from the flanks. Shells slam into side armor, into rear plates the crews had not expected to expose this early. The Americans are not sitting in obvious, easily spotted defenses as they had at Kasserine. They have sighted their anti-tank weapons to create interlocking fields of fire. Crossfires that make German armor vulnerable no matter where it tries to turn. In one tank, a commander swings his cupola around, hunting for the source of the new fire. He sees muzzle flashes from a position he would have considered low priority in earlier battles. These Americans have studied the ground differently. By 9:00 a.m., German forces have penetrated roughly 2-0 yards into American, held terrain, on paper, that looks normal for a successful offensive. This far into Kasserine, American lines had already begun to dissolve. Here, the pattern is wrong. The Americans are not fleeing. They are giving ground slowly in controlled movements, falling back to secondary positions, not as a mob, but as units, fighting withdrawals. For the men of the Big Red One, this battle feels like something more than a tactical engagement. It feels like an exorcism. These are the same soldiers who were humiliated weeks ago. As 10th Panzer grinds toward them, they do not look over their shoulders for an escape route. They look over their sights. They trade the memory of helpless panic for a colder, more focused emotion, professional rage. In the sand and rock, among shell bursts and tank silhouettes, they are determined to prove to themselves as much as to the enemy that Kasserine was not their true measure. German signals units, listening to American radio traffic, pick up a tone they did not hear in February. Officers give clear, firm tactical orders, hold until ordered, then fall back to phase line red. Machine guns shift fire left, anti-tank engage second echelon. Units report positions accurately. They coordinate fields of fire, synchronize withdrawals with artillery. This is not the frantic, overlapping panic that filled the airwaves at Kasserine Pass, American infantry holds under German fire until told to move. When they do withdraw, they slot into prepared positions, turn, and start shooting again. They are not running. They are executing textbook tactical retreats that preserve cohesion and bleed the attackers. On the German right, the Italian Centauro division runs into its own wall. They report heavy resistance. American counterfire pins down their infantry. When Italian units try to advance, American machine guns open up from well-sighted overlapping positions. Every attempt to push forward is cut and redirected. The Americans have prepared this battlefield properly. By noon, the German advance has stalled around 30 yards from its start line. No breakthrough, no collapsing flank. This is not the rolling success Kasserine led them to expect. At his headquarters, Hans-Jürgen von Arnim receives the streams of reports from Guettar. The attack is not meeting its objectives. American resistance is organized and effective. Casualties among German units are rising with no sign of the enemy cracking. Nothing about this matches the intelligence briefings he was given. The Americans were supposed to be fragile here. Instead, they are fighting like professionals. Von Arnim studies the situation with growing concern. Something fundamental has changed. The Shermans are still outgunned, their guns still needing too close to shorter ranges for kills. The terrain is not dramatically different from Kasserine, and yet the Americans are fighting with a coordination, aggression, and calm that German commanders did not anticipate 3 weeks ago. Radio intercepts show American officers issuing confident orders. Artillery is concentrating fire with brutal precision. Infantry is counterattacking locally instead of simply falling back. This is not the demoralized force that broke in February. It is something new, and it is learning fast. By the evening of 23 March, the dust and smoke over Guettar hang low and dirty in the cooling air. The German advance has stalled at roughly 30 yards. Lines that should, by doctrine, have rolled up and broken are still there, bent, bloodied, but not shattered. American units trade ground only when ordered. They pull back in good order, slot into new positions, and go on firing. For an army the Germans had expected to push aside like a door on broken hinges, this is something new. 24 March 1943, at his headquarters, Hans-Jürgen von Arnim studies the latest reports from the front. The picture is getting worse, not better. The offensive is not breaking through. Casualties in 10th Panzer and Centauro are significant. Tanks are being knocked out, infantry is pinned, and on the other side, no sign of the kind of cascading panic that made Kasserine such an easy victory. American artillery remains active and coordinated. Their anti-tank guns are still taking a toll. Their infantry is holding, then counterattacking instead of dissolving. This is not the fight he signed up for when he approved Rommel's plan. Von Arnim weighs the options. Push again and risk burning out veteran formations for no gain. Or admit the unthinkable that in 3 weeks, the Americans have become too strong here for the kind of offensive that worked at Kasserine. He recommends calling off the operation. German high command agrees. The attack is suspended. German forces pull back from Guettar. The second Kasserine repeat humiliation that was supposed to break American morale never materializes. In the days that follow, German intelligence turns its attention to a question that now matters more than any single battle line. What happened? How did the same corps that fell apart in February stand firm in March? They interview captured American soldiers. They collect field orders and notes from abandoned command posts. They sift through maps, artillery fire plans, fragments of training schedules. The more they look, the clearer the reality becomes. The Americans have not received new tanks. They have not been flooded with fresh divisions. They have not spent months rehearsing a new doctrine. The change happens in 21 days under Patton's command. From the German side, when they reconstruct it, Patton's method looks almost brutally simple. First, leadership purge. He removes officers who hesitate, who cling to caution when aggression is required. He promotes men who attack. Command positions go to leaders who understand that speed and initiative win battles, not just adherence to established schedules. An officer who waits too long for perfect information finds himself relieved. An officer who seizes opportunity under fire finds himself with more responsibility. Second, Doctrine revolution. Every unit in II Corps learns the same fundamental response. When attacked, counterattack. Do not simply hold and wait to be crushed under concentrated armor. Hit back, immediately, locally, even if the counterblow is small. Artillery is retrained and reorganized around concentration of fire at decisive points. Instead of scattering shells across the front, guns across the corps learn to deliver synchronized, time-on-target strikes that drop like a hammer on specific German thrusts. Defense is no longer defined as sitting in a trench and waiting. It becomes an active posture, aggressive patrolling, spoiling attacks, constant probes. The enemy is never allowed to feel comfortable closing in. Third, psychological transformation. Patton drills into his soldiers a new belief about themselves. Not with empty speeches, but with a system that rewards aggression and punishes passivity. Units that perform well are praised loudly, publicly. Their successes are used as examples. Officers who fail in combat are removed, not after long deliberation, but quickly, so that everyone sees the link between hesitation and loss of command. Slowly, a simple lesson takes root across II Corps. Attack succeeds, hesitation fails. For men still carrying the sting of Kasserine, this is more than a slogan. It is a way out of shame. In German analysis rooms, officers and staff begin to map what Guettar really means in terms of doctrine. The Americans, they conclude, have shifted in a way that cuts directly across long-held German tactical advantages. German doctrine relies on massed armor breaking through weak points. The American response at Guettar is to saturate those approaches with mobile anti-tank weapons positioned in depth. Instead of a thin forward line that collapses under pressure, they build a layered defense. Wherever the panzers try to push, they find themselves in crossfires. The old assumption that superior armor and gunnery will guarantee a breakthrough given enough pressure no longer holds. German doctrine also assumes that defenders under sustained attack will eventually retreat in disarray. That is when exploitation forces rush through, racing into the enemy rear. But at Guettar, American doctrine demands immediate local counterattacks. Just when a German commander begins to think he has the upper hand, American units falling back, lines bending, fresh fire and maneuver hit his spearheads. What felt like the edge of victory suddenly becomes a fight for survival. A company of panzers expects to roll through retreating infantry and instead runs headlong into a new line of guns, hidden until it matters. German doctrine emphasizes technical superiority and individual tactical excellence. They take pride in the skill of the panzer commander, the quality of the optics, the penetration power of their long-barreled guns. American doctrine, as it emerges here, emphasizes something else: coordination and overwhelming firepower. The Americans are not trying to out-duel individual German tanks at 2-0 yards. They are turning German strength sideways by making every breakthrough corridor a killing zone of artillery and anti-tank crossfire. Time-on-target strikes, from the German infantryman's point of view, feel like the sky itself collapsing. You are not just fighting enemy soldiers, you are being hammered by a coordinated machine that has finally found its rhythm. The Americans, the German analysts realize, are not trying to match their technical edges weapon by weapon. They are making those edges far less relevant by synchronizing what they have into a brutal, mechanized system of violence. Meanwhile, Rommel back in Germany watches these reports filter in with a different perspective. Before he leaves Tunisia, he has already started revising his earlier assessment. The Americans, he writes now, are learning faster than any opponent Germany has faced. They have taken the disaster of Kasserine, identified their weaknesses, and begun to fix them in a matter of weeks. Guettar is the proof his revised view is right, but when that proof comes, he is no longer in Africa to shape the next moves. Two critical events unfold on the same day. 6 March 1943. In Tunisia, Rommel launches his final North African offensive at Medellin against the British 8th Army. He hopes to replicate past success, concentrate armor, surprise, breakthrough. Instead, the attack is stopped cold in a single day. British forces, well prepared with anti-tank defenses and intelligence on German intentions, smash the offensive. German casualties are heavy. The attack collapses within hours. That same day, on the American side of the front, George Patton assumes command of II Corps. Rommel exits the North African stage just as Patton steps onto it. The overlap is as symbolic as it is really changing of the guard. 3 days later, on 9 March, Rommel flies back to Germany on sick leave. His jaundice and exhaustion have worsened. He will never return to Africa. Before boarding the aircraft, he writes updated assessments for the commanders remaining in Tunisia. The tone is no longer the confident scorn of his mid-February letters. He warns that American forces under new leadership, Patton's leadership air showing rapid improvement. Any further operations against them, he cautions, must not assume they will break like they did at Kasserine. But warnings in war travel slowly. Plans already set in motion are not easily unwound. By the time German units slam into American positions at Guettar on 23 March, those warnings are, for all practical purposes, too late. The battle confirms everything Rommel feared, but he is in Germany when his concerns are vindicated. The commanders who dismissed his revised view learn the hard way that the Americans who stood in front of them are not the same men they scattered in February. Then comes the date that ends the North African campaign, 13 May 1943, German and Italian forces in Tunisia surrender. Over 250 Zero-Axis soldiers go into captivity. The fight for North Africa is over. On Allied maps, the theater changes color. For American soldiers who fought their way from humiliation at Kasserine to victory at Tunis, it has taken less than 3 months. 90 days, in the aftermath, German commanders dissect what went wrong and, more importantly, what changed on the other side. They study American performance from Kasserine to Guettar to the final battles around Tunis. They issue new tactical guidance to their own forces. Future defenders facing Americans, they warn, must expect aggressive tactics, rapid armored advances, concentrated artillery. They are no longer fighting a hesitant, inexperienced enemy. They are facing an army whose doctrine is evolving faster than anything in German historical experience. When Allied forces land in Sicily on 10 July 1943, those warnings are tested. Patton, now commanding the U-7th Army, lands with his troops on the island's southern coast. German and Italian defenders, alerted by Tunisia, brace themselves for hard, fast American blows. They get exactly that. Patton's forces drive rapidly up the western side of Sicily. They leap from town to town, road to road, faster than many German staff officers believe is feasible. His columns push so hard that, once again, German units attempting to withdraw in good order find themselves in a race they are not ready for. By 17 August, Patton's troops reach Messina. They have beaten British forces in a de facto race across the island, arriving first at a key objective that, on paper, should have been British. For German defenders, the pattern seen in Tunisia only intensifies. American tactical aggression, when combined with superior logistics, the ability to keep tanks fueled, guns supplied, men moving, makes sustained defensive operations almost impossible. Every time they try to form a new line, it is already under threat. Every time they think they have bought time, American spearheads show up early. The lesson is clear. The Americans have not just improved, they are still improving, and they are doing it at a pace that begins to frighten even hardened German professionals. June 1944. Erwin Rommel is no longer the desert fox in North Africa. Now he commands German forces in France, facing the invasion he has known would come sooner or later. The maps on his wall show the Channel coast, not Tunisian wadis, but one thing from Africa has not been left behind. His view of the Americans, and that view has changed completely since his letter to Lucy after Kasserine Pass. For months, Rommel studies Allied behavior in Italy and the Mediterranean. He knows now that the Americans do not stop when they get ashore. They push inland fast, exploiting every opening. They combine their material superiority, tanks, trucks, guns, aircraft with a new aggressive doctrine that refuses to sit passively on a beachhead. So, when he plans the defense of France, Rommel shapes his doctrines specifically to counter what he has seen them become. He positions mobile reserves close to likely invasion beaches, not far back in a rigid line. He knows that once American troops land, they will try to break out rapidly. The only hope is to hit them at once, immediate counterattacks before they can build momentum, before they can bring their artillery and logistics machine fully ashore. His written assessments now sound nothing like his February 1940 three letters mocking American softness. He writes that American forces have shown themselves to be very much more advanced in their tactical thinking than the British. They combine overwhelming material superiority with aggressive action, making static defense almost meaningless. Fixed lines, the kind that once held for months against slower enemies, are little more than aiming stakes for American artillery. Against this new U.S. Army, doctrine must be fluid, mobile, ready to strike hard the moment they land. Then the day comes, 6 June 1944. In the early hours, reports begin to arrive. Paratroopers have landed. Naval bombardment slams into coastal batteries. Beaches with names like Utah and Omaha are under assault. Just as he expected, American forces at Utah and Omaha push inland aggressively, even under heavy fire and confusion. On Omaha, casualties are appalling, the surf choked with wreckage and bodies, but they do not stop. Small groups of soldiers claw their way off the sand, up bluffs, through minefields and wire. On Utah, clever navigation errors actually place them slightly off their intended landing zones, and those units adjust, exploit, move in. Rommel's reading of their character is now fully confirmed. They are not the soft, poorly trained force he beat at Kasserine Pass. They are a professional army that understands how to turn material superiority into brutal momentum. His deployed doctrine, however, does not get the chance to work the way he intends. Rommel wants to unleash armored reserves immediately counter the beachheads before they can become a flood. But at the highest levels, politics and fear intervene. Hitler refuses to release key panzer divisions at the crucial moment. The armored counterblow Rommel has planned is delayed, blunted. When some formations finally move, the Allies are already too well established ashore, their own armor landing, their artillery emplaced, their air power biting deep into any German column that dares move by day. Still in his own mind, Rommel's tactical assessment stands. He was right about what the Americans have become. The problem is not his reading of the enemy, but the refusal of his own leadership to act on it in time. After Germany surrenders, the war ends not just on battlefields but in interrogation rooms. 1945. In anonymous buildings across occupied Germany, Allied officers sit across from former enemy's generals, field marshals, corps commanders. They ask not just about orders and units, but about impressions. What did you think of the Americans? What surprised you? What did you get wrong? The testimony that emerges from men like Hassoff and Mantel and Albert Kessler is consistent and revealing. In their notes and transcripts, a pattern shows through, a grudging, almost startled respect. They had expected Americans to resemble the French of 1940 or the early Soviets in 1941. Slow to learn, prone to collapse when hit hard, easy to demoralize. Instead, they find an opponent whose rate of adaptation feels to them almost unfair. General Hassoff and Mantel, who commands panzer forces against American armies in 1940–1945, states bluntly that the Americans learn faster than any army Germany faces. They identify weaknesses and correct them in weeks, not months. He has watched them do it. He has fought them before and after those changes. Field Marshal Albert Kessler testifies that American artillery coordination is the most effective he encounters in 6 years of war. The speed with which American forces can concentrate fire on specific tactical targets, he says, renders parts of German tactical doctrine obsolete almost overnight. Positions that would have survived earlier barrages are now chewed apart in seconds by timed concentrations. Again and again, these German professionals emphasize that the American transformation is not about superior equipment alone. Soviet armies also field excellent tanks, British forces have experienced soldiers and long traditions. What makes the Americans different, in their view, is the way they combine material advantage with aggressive doctrine. They do not just have more guns, they have found a way of using those guns that turns quantity into decisive quality. By 1945, in the eyes of these German officers, the American forces facing them are dramatically different from those they first met in 1943. The same army that lost at Kasserine Pass, that left wreckage and doubt strewn across a Tunisian valley, has become one of the most effective fighting forces in history. The Germans do not just lose the war, they lose something deeper, their own sense of innate military superiority, the belief that they uniquely understand war best. Looking back, Rommel's initial assessment after Kasserine Pass makes sense within the world he knew. Armies, in his experience, need years to develop effective doctrine. Officers need extensive combat experience to become truly capable field leaders. Soldiers require months, even years, of training and fighting to become professional veterans. He believes those cycles cannot be rushed. Then Patton proves him wrong in 3 weeks, the first 3 weeks after Kasserine changed the doctrine. Guettar shows that change in action. The next 2 months through the fighting that leads to the surrender in Tunisia prove the change is not a fluke. It is permanent. By 13 May 1943, when over 250 zero-axis prisoners lay down their arms in Tunisia, German generals understand something they had not believed possible in February. The Americans who broke at Kasserine are gone forever. In their place stands an army led by men who have embraced mobility, aggression, and coordination, and who can teach those lessons at a speed the Germans did not think possible. From their side of the table, after the guns go silent, the German generals arrive at a set of hard conclusions. Leadership matters more than experience, doctrine matters more than equipment, aggressive mindset matters more than technical superiority. They built better tanks, the Americans built better doctrine. When the two met at Guettar, doctrine won. It wins again in Sicily as Patton's 7th Army races up the coast. It wins in Normandy as American units push inland from Utah and Omaha despite the blood price on the beaches. It wins across France and into Germany as American operational tempo and artillery coordination break the back of what remains of German field forces. Those 90 days between the shame of Kasserine and the triumph in Tunisia do more than just save an army. They change the course of the century. They are the moment when the arsenal of democracy finds its sword. From then on, German generals stop underestimating American soldiers because by May 1943, they realize the man across the foxhole is not a tourist in war. He is the architect of their inevitable defeat. If you followed this story through from Rommel's contempt after Kasserine, to the shock at Guettar, to the grudging respect in 1940, ask yourself, what mattered most in this transformation? Patton's leadership, the new American doctrine, or the speed at which an entire army was willing to change? Do you think modern armies still fall into the trap, the Germans judging an opponent by one bad battle and underestimating how fast people can adapt under pressure? If you want more stories that track how a single defeat reshapes an entire war in land, at sea, or in the air, tell me which campaign, which general, or which turning point you want to explore next. Like the video if this changed how you see Kasserine Pass and the American Army in World War II. Subscribe if you want more deep dives into the battles where doctrine, not just hardware, decided who walked away.